Well, hello there. You know what time it is? If you're up here hugging me, it must be time for another video. And there's all your fans out there. You see them? No? You don't care. Again, he doesn't, but I do. Hey everybody, it's Robert Earl out here, along with Cascade the Wonder Dog, out here at the Eco Ranch Sustainable Living Educational Center in far west Texas. We're going to reprise a video we did almost exactly 4 years ago. We did it in 2015, July 22nd of 2015. I believe today is the 17th. Today I think is the 17th. Anyway, we're going to reprise it, and the title of the original one, I'm going to put a link to it down below, was Let's Make Prickly Pear Juice, and this one says, Let's Make Prickly Pear Juice Again. And mainly just because a number of people have asked about some of the process that I used, and particularly about the fruit press. So I'll give you time to give you a little bit of an introduction. Those of you that don't know what prickly pears fruits are, or maybe have seen them, I'm not going to pick one up with my fingers because they got pickers all over them. But they're these little purpley fruits that grow on top of the prickly pear after it has this gorgeous yellow bloom. This one here has got a little problem on the side. Some of them do, and that won't affect what we're going to do with it. But they're ripe when they're this big and when they're purple. They're actually about a week, maybe 10 days away from being at their prime right at the moment. But the problem with waiting till they're at their prime is the night before, the javelinas get there and eat them all up. Or one of your neighbors gets there and picks them all. Because these here came from the right-of-way on Highway 118. So anybody can come along and grab them. It's perfectly all right. I do have about, I don't know, maybe about another 6 gallons or so that have grown on our prickly pears here that we've cultivated exactly for that. They grow, prickly pears grow, they bloom and fruit every other year. In other words, they might bloom every year, but you don't get many fruits one year, and then the next year, bang! Well, this is the year. So we have got 4 of these 6-gallon buckets completely full of the fruits. I guess they call the fruits tunas. Well, you know, hey, I travel through Asia. To me, tuna is something that goes on sushi, and that's fruit. So I won't call them that, but I guess that's the proper name. Anyway, I am set up now to squeeze the juice out of it, and that's where I'm a little different than a lot of people, and I'm going to show you how I do it. And what I've got here is I've got my blender. This is a restaurant quality blender. I've got my fruit press. Now, one of our viewers by the name of Steve was asking about the fruit press. This comes from a company called Yakima, and I'm not sure, I'm assuming they're in Yakima, Washington. But it's Yakima, so you would look up Yakima Fruit Press. If money is tight, like it was when I bought this 4 years ago, you want to buy the fruit press. If you've got a little bit of, you know, I don't mean if you're rich, but I mean if you can afford to spend a bit more, I would definitely recommend buying the cider press. The difference is the cider press puts a lot more pressure on the fruit. You get every last drop of juice out. This doesn't put quite as much pressure as a cider press does, but it also costs $100 less. I believe I paid in the neighborhood of $150 for this, so it'd be about $250 for cider press from Yakima. They're not the only ones. There's other cider presses out there, but this one here we've used it for, this is the 4th year. So, I've got cheesecloth. I've got a lot of cheesecloth cut, and I've cut it just so that I can put the fruits in here. I have a wire holding it right now, and you'll see as I fill it up, I put the plate down in here and press the juice down. At that point, as I'm pressing the juice down, I'll release the wire so that the cheesecloth goes down with it. I can reuse the cheesecloth. I have to be careful because of all the pickers in these. I can reuse the cheesecloth by picking it out, dumping the pulp out, which the chickens will love the pulp, and then just, you know, putting it back up here just like you see it now. It has a hole in the tray on this side where I am, and underneath that I've got my big stainless steel pot to catch all the juice. So what I'm going to do is just spend probably the next 4 hours or 5 hours just pressing the juice out of these. Here's the way I do it that's different from a lot of people. A lot of people, they'll burn off the pickers, or they'll cut it up or something. Those pickers hurt. Every time I've handled them, I've had pickers in my hands for weeks. So all I do is take my tongs, and I'm just going to pick up the fruits whole like this, and drop a few of them into the blender rather. As I say, it's an industrial strength blender, but if you just have a simple household blender, it's fine, because this is not a, you know, you're not cutting up rocks or anything with this. So we're going to take it. I put just a few in. We're just going to take it. I do hate using a spoon in here, because I hit the blade with the spoon and I've lost a big piece of wood. So a few seconds. Actually, you don't even want it this chewed up. It doesn't hurt anything though. Pour it in, and add some more, and repeat and repeat and repeat, which I'll do. And once that's filled up, then we'll press it down. Well, folks, I'm on day 2 of the pressing the prickly pears. It's a lot of work, I'll tell you. I will tell you this, it is a lot of work to press them. It's a lot of work to pick them, it's a lot of work to press them. But worse than the work is the mess. The prickly pear juice stains. Luckily, bleach takes it right out, but as you can see, I've got a horrible mess here in front of me. I want to show you, though, my cheesecloths that I bought online, again, a Chinese company, were not big enough to make a essentially a bag here. And I said, because that's how most of this mess came out, is that the pulp got bypassed. I said, well, what can I do here? And I remembered that I had cheesecloth and elastic ham bags. So what I'm doing is using a ham bag. Now I'll show you this. I've pressed this out, so I'm left with a prickly pear cake here. Now this is another reason why I say get a cider press instead of a fruit press, because the cake is still got a lot of juice in it, but I have no way of extracting the juice. I cranked it down as far as I could crank it, and I'm left with this, which is essentially the skins, the seeds, and the thorns. So, never wanting to let anything go to waste. Again, remember our mantra, the 3 R's: reuse, purpose, recycle. So, try to find a use for this. Well, the best use for this is animal feed. So that's what I'm going to do, is feed it to the chickens. And in fact, the animals love the prickly pears so much. It's the only time that I've ever seen a javelina that had an opportunity to run away from me get aggressive, and that's when I got between him and the prickly pears he was eating. So this is one of my ham bags. Again, it's cheesecloth and some kind of elastic, and it's exactly what it sounds like. You put a ham in it and then put the ham in your smokehouse. So I'm just taking enough up to tie that knot that you saw, and putting it over the barrel of the press. Now what I'm going to do is pour my macerated prickly pears into this. Once I get it completely full, then what I learned is I have to pull it up, tie it off, and then press it down, and that way I don't make this horrible mess, because I got a big mess to clean up here. Now the way that I have been picking them up, Debbie and I both tried to avoid the thorns I used a double pair of gloves that worked great when I picked these. Debbie used these tongs. Well, I'm using the tongs right now to put the fruits into the blender. You say, hold on, he just put the whole fruits in there. Yeah, I did, because the bag strains out all the thorns, the seeds, and the skin, and I'm left with the pure juice. I mean, why do more work than you have to? You know, my Uncle Homer, I often talk about my Uncle Homer in my videos, when he taught me how to go out in the bush in northern Ontario and camp. And when I say camp, I don't mean camping at a KOA. I mean, we're out in the middle of the bush somewhere miles away from any help or the nearest roads. Uncle Homer always said, only rough it as rough as you have to. Don't squat and take a crap if there's a log nearby to hang your butt over. And don't hang your butt over a log if there's an outhouse nearby, and if there's a flush toilet nearby, don't use the outhouse. Makes perfect sense, doesn't it, when you think about it? Why should you rough it? Why rough it any rougher than you have to? So when it comes, and I apply that to everything we do around here. Why work any harder than I have to? So we're working on this. I'm going to come back and show you when I'm completely done, but I did want to point out back here, you see this glove waving at you. This is going to be 5 gallons of prickly pear wine. Now all I've done is put a little bit of sugar in 5 gallons of wine. It's actually going to be 4. In 4 gallons of wine, I've put about a cup of sugar and about a tablespoon of yeast as a starter. Now, of course, it's creating carbon dioxide, so I put the glove on here to burp it every once in a while. We're going to let this sit for probably 6 weeks. Then filter it out, then bottle it up, let it sit for a couple more months, and then give it a taste. It usually tastes like a really dry wine, and I can't really describe it to you too much because I'm one of these people that doesn't... I can tell you right about the nuances. It has fragrances of pomegranate and kumquat and blackberry. I don't know about that stuff. It is pretty good, but it's a dry wine. Anyway, let me get this all done. I'll be about 4 more hours at least getting this finished. Well, guys, several days have passed, as you can tell by the shirt. I'm wearing one of my 2 non-pink shirts. Out here in the chaos kitchen, still chaos because we're still doing a lot of things. I'm trying to straighten up, get a little bit better organized. But I did finish the prickly pear, all the prickly pear work. I cleaned everything up and I cleaned it up. Removed the stain anyway. It's still chaotic here. But we ended up with putting up 12 gallons of prickly pear juice. About half of it pasteurized, about half of it unpasteurized. 5 gallons of wine, which by the time I strain it and everything, it'll end up being about 4 gallons. I estimate that's 21 bottles of wine in a bottle like this. Now, this isn't wine. You can see I've got it labeled liquor mix because I wanted to show you, those of you that don't drink or do drink, but you also like a health drink with your juices. This straight, wonderful juice, me drinking it, I would add a little sugar and a little bit of water to cut it down some because you don't need to drink it straight. It's just really kind of very, very fruity straight. But what I do with this is I'll take 50-50 prickly pear juice and a liquor, which I think the only 2 liquors you really want to use would be a rum or not quite 50% if you go to Everclear. Everclear you'll want to come up about 60%, 65% with prickly pear juice and then the rest with Everclear. You want to keep it, you want it to be about I don't know, about 80 proof, 90 proof, something like that, 40% alcohol, something like that. Then what you have is you have an alcohol drink, an alcohol that you can just pour into a glass and add whatever you want to it. It's really good with lemonade. But anyway, this is what I end up with. This is the color. It's great. I've enjoyed having it. If you have access to prickly pears or see them on the right-of-way, wherever you live, and I mean, my brother George and I, we started this whole tradition, God, I'll bet you it's 15 years ago, on Sanibel Island in Florida picking their prickly pears. We saw we were out walking and talking, and we saw a topless girl. Well, we are men. She saw us too, and she took off, but we thought, well, let's kind of trail her, never thinking we were stalking the poor girl. Trying to see if we could catch a second glimpse of her. We never did catch a second glimpse of her, but we figured, what the hell, we'll fill our hats with prickly pears and go home and make a drink. Well, in honor of our topless beauty, we call the drink a sea nymph. And it pretty much is just basic pina colada mixes with some of this mixed into it, either on the rocks or ground up. However, I can't think. Sometimes I can't think when I'm doing this live. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Now, there's a lot of information that's not in this video, and I'm not giving you right now, because I'm going to put on the end cards, I'm going to put a link to my next vlog. In that vlog, about 1.5 minutes in, I discuss the prickly pear in a little more detail, and I'd prefer that you went there, and if you don't want to listen to the vlog, just kind of skip ahead, but pick up all the vitamins and the benefits that you can get from having this. Everything from fiber to improved memory. And with that, I guess I'll just end this video, put it up as Let's Revisit the Prickly Pears, or whatever I said at the beginning. I'll check it when I do the editing. And until next time, it's Robert Earl out here at the Eco Ranch Sustainable Living Educational Center saying see you later.